Who wants to be a dentist? I loved organic chemistry. I had a passion for science, and I wanted to be a geneticist or a research scientist, and had no intention of going into dentistry.
But innovation happens when you really put everything you have.
For me, the big thing is, let's just use validated workflows. I don't care on what printer it is. I was like, oh, wait a minute. These guys are actually making their own resins right here using truly innovative materials.
And the tough version was born when I was really out of trying to hit the high impact requirements that FDA requires, which is 900 joule per square centimeter of area.
I could print 10 veneers in 10 minutes with your crown kit. It would take me 4 hours to mill 10 veneers.
How many hours?
4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it's my favorite resin out there.
Why is that? All right, I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina, in this beautiful city, visiting the Mod Institute with Wally Renne. Wally, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Amazing. So Wally, who is Wally Renne?
Wally Renne is passionate, and somebody that I think, if you get to meet him, is actually down to earth.
Amazing. I met you for the first time not a while ago, but I've been in touch with you since 2019, 18, when you started the whole 3D printing journey. But I want to hear your story from the beginning when you started in dentistry, however far you want to take it. So let's get it started. You went to school in Charleston?
I did. So I went to college at Charleston for my undergraduate degree in genetics, molecular biology, organic chemistry, and then was a super nerd. Didn't do the typical college thing where you go have fun. I decided I did that before college, so I wasn't very well behaved in high school. And so in college, I was like, okay, now's my time to, kind of learn some stuff. So it was actually really good for me. And I met my wife freshman year of college, so that also kept me out of a ton of trouble. And I had a passion for science, and I wanted to be a geneticist or a research scientist, and had no intention of going into dentistry. In fact, probably if you were to ask me what's the bottom tier thing that I would ever do with my life, dentistry would be one of those.
So you had no clue that you want to get into dentistry?
Did not like dentistry.
Wow.
Yeah.
So organic chemistry, is that why you like materials and chemistry so
Yeah, exactly.
amazing?
I loved organic chemistry. I took more organic chemistry classes than I care to admit, and I found it remarkably interesting. And whereas a lot of my peers were struggling with those classes, those were my top classes.
Amazing. So I want to get back to the organic chemistry topic later, but so how did you then pick dentistry? You didn't like it, but...
So right after college, my first job was sequencing the DNA of mitochondrial genomes of sea anemones. And I was at Grice Marine Laboratory here in Charleston, and I was chopping up sea anemones and determining where on the evolutionary phylogeny these sea anemones belonged. And I was doing Sanger dideoxy DNA sequencing and doing tons of research collection and data collection. And
that's the undergrad?
What's that?
That was the undergraduate or?
That was right after college. So it was my first job. And it was in science and it was in research, so I was super pumped. But what I realized was that research is a lonely profession. You're oftentimes 10, 12 hours alone in a research lab with just you, some pipettes, and it could get overwhelmingly lonely. I mean, the senior research scientists were going out in the Bahamas and collecting these things on their little trips, and they would bring them back in buckets, and I would get to chop them up and do all this stuff. And it was like, I don't know if this is for me. I'm an introvert by nature, but at the same time, I thrive off of others. And so it's like, I think I need something that's a little bit different. So I quit that job.
After how long?
About 6 months.
6 months.
I quit and didn't have a job, and I was, engaged, and my fiance was still in college, and I had to provide for the family, so I needed a paying job, and there was this ad in the paper for dental assistant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, and what's cool was my wife was like, I think I want to be a dentist. My wife wanted to be a dentist. And I was like, you're crazy. Who wants to be a dentist? And so I went and I got this job as a dental assistant, and it was funny because it was a 2-hour away. I had to drive 2 hours.
Where was it?
It was in Myrtle Beach, and I was living in Charleston. Mm-hmm. And this dentist that I worked for really took me under the wing and taught me so much. I worked there for a full year, and I was doing everything that you could imagine. I was the lead assistant for him. I would open and close, and I was his kind of right-hand assistant, where I would do all his temps, his aesthetic cases, and really started to fall in love with materials. Because what this dentist would do is he would get a new material and give it to me to learn how to use and teach him.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's just too busy.
So is that where you learned a lot of like handwork and essentially being a...
And he was kind of old school and almost like, I wouldn't say in an abusive way, but he would, for example, for making a temporary, he would pop out of the chair and give me 5 minutes. But I had to make a block of acrylic, like a cube, and press it onto the tooth, and then hand carve the tooth. Like there was no molds.
This is pre-mold.
This is like, I didn't know a tooth from anything, and like he would teach me. And the next thing you know, I was hand carving these teeth in like 5 seconds from a block of nothing. So when I got to dental school, it was like the easiest thing in the world.
So you were better than a lot of the classmates. So how long did you stay there?
I was there at least a full year, working 50 hours a week. And he encouraged me. So my wife was applying to dental school, and then I was like, he's like, you should apply. And I was like, I don't want to be a dentist. I was like, no offense, but this is like the last thing that I ever want to do with my life. But then it hit me, and this is kind of something true. He kept encouraging me, and then I was like, you know what? I had so much fun going to college with my wife all 4 years. I was like,
you want to do it again?
I'll do it again. I was like, you know what? I'll do it.
Was she in college or
she was in
school?
college at the time applying for. She's a year behind, so she was in college applying to dental schools, and I was working as his assistant. Just kind of happened to come upon that, not wanting ever to go in dentistry. But then I got to thinking, like, we had such a great time in college. Mm-hmm. Both were the same major.
Right.
I said, why don't I just go to school with her?
Then have fun.
We'll just do fun for 4 years, And it was the best thing ever. Like, it turned out like I fell in love with the profession instantly. Everything, the science and the art combined to help people changed my life. And what's cool is I got to experience it with my wife. And to this day, like, if you were to ask me, what is one of the most fun times of my life? It's dental school. And it's not that we got a lot of free time to go out and do things. It's just that we got to experience it together.
Different things.
It was amazing.
What's interesting is my journey in dentistry is similar. No one in my family or relatives was a dentist. It's just happened to me that one of the early Moonray printers ended up in Glywell Labs. And then I took it, and that was the first time that I saw a dental lab in my life.
Wow.
This is 2015 and 16. Then I fell in love with it. And the most part of it, the part that I'm really, really passionate and I get the most kick out of is just spending time with clinicians.
Yeah.
Like today, we spent a good 4 or 5 hours just talking about materials and hardware and where things go. I feel like I can still go for another couple of more hours. So it's fun. So what did you do? She was in the same dental school at Charleston?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we both went to...
So she's a dentist?
She is a dentist, and so...
I didn't know that.
But she also broke my heart because my vision was that we would graduate and practice together, right? But then what happened was right around second year, she's like, I think I want to work on kids. And I'm like, that might be the one thing I can't follow you. If you would have said any other specialty, anything.
You would have.
I would have been like, okay, let's do it. But she's like, I want to work on kids. And at the time, I was just like...
How old were you?
Gosh, young. I mean...
20-something?
20, early 20s, 25. And she was like 24. She's younger than me, smarter than me. She graduated high school and college early. One of those kids. It's frustrating because in dental school she never had to study, but I had to study. But she was like, I want to do pediatrics. And I was like, okay. So now what am I going to do?
You don't like it, or you don't want to go pursue that?
Definitely not going to pursue that because it's super stressful to me. So then I had a passion for education. So in college I was a teacher's assistant. I taught and TA'd for almost all the science courses, one of those nerdy kids. And in dental school, I was gross anatomy TA. I was teaching, tutoring, helping people pass the boards, all those kinds of things. I was like, you know what? I don't want to go solo practice without, I don't want to do that. So I was like, what if I could do academics? What if I could do a career in academics? And, the thing about that is it's hard to do a career in academics if you've never been out in the real world, right?
Is.
But what was interesting was that senior year, one of the faculty came to me. It was like, we just purchased $1.2 million worth of scanners and mills.
MUSC.
Yeah. And nobody knows how to use it. Would you be willing to stay on? Because at the time I was early on showing this big interest in tech. Would you be willing to stay on and help
figure it out, basically?
Figure it out and develop, complete freedom, develop a curriculum around it. And I was like, wow, this is a dream come true, dream opportunity. And, they started me off at like what I would consider to be minimum wage at the time.
What was your job?
It was an instructor, which is below
all the,
everything.
I know the hierarchy.
An instructor making $70,000 a year.
Teaching technology.
And I was in heaven. It didn't matter that I couldn't pay my student loans. It didn't matter.
So you took it.
I was like, I'm doing it.
Nice.
And what was cool was the support from the faculty at the time. There's these amazing individuals who mentored me. And because I was not the clinician I needed to be. When you graduate dental school, it's funny, if you look at like the Dunning-Kruger curve, when you look at confidence level versus experience, like my confidence level was I could do anything in the world.
It's the reverse usually.
It's like, but my experience was zero, right?
Right.
And what these mentors did for me was help bring me to reality, right? And then as I got more experience as a clinician, you slowly start to get a more grounded confidence level of what your clinical abilities are, and then you work to achieve better results. And in the academic environment, there's no better place to be mentored by these amazing clinicians and prosthodontists and friends who don't look at you as somebody who's inferior and new, but they look at you as somebody who has potential and is willing to invest time in you. And that just furthered my drive to teach because I saw how they invested in me, and I wanted to give back to invest in others that way.
And then you stayed on and started. When did you start the program, the digital dentistry program?
It was like the year after I started back in, I graduated in 2008. In 2009, we had the country's first undergraduate CAD/CAM program, the nation. Because the faculty who believed in me gave me complete freedom to develop a curriculum. I traveled, that whole year I spent traveling all around the nation, looking at programs who have tried to implement it but failed, some people who were successful, and more importantly, they invested in me to go train with some of the leaders in digital dentistry at the time.
2009 is, what was the dominant technology back then?
CEREC. Lee Culp, Alex Tudstone, And these individuals who were training for CEREC and training on digital lab technology really opened my eyes to what was possible. And the faculty enabled me to do anything I wanted. And so I was like, you know what? We were able to develop and implement into the curriculum true digital dentistry workflows. Because back then in 2009, at the time, there wasn't a school really allowing same-day crowns. Mm-hmm. You would take an impression, you would pour it up in stone, and then you would scan it at a later date, and then do all this stuff. And I was like, that's not what digital dentistry is. Digital dentistry is same day. And so we were able to incorporate it into the curriculum starting freshman year, and the whole entire 4 years had CAD/CAM interjected in all the pertinent areas to where students graduated having completed at least 5 CAD/CAM single visit inlays, onlays, or crowns.
That's 2009.
2009.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on CEREC? I mean, not today, the contribution they had. You started by that basically, so you mentioned it twice. I want to hear what you say about them at this point.
Back then, it's amazing how far they drove and empowered dentists to take control of that process. And more importantly, patient care is dramatically improved when you don't have to put a temporary on a tooth, in my opinion.
Which is still, that's not a standard of care. A lot of people do temporary. And
sure, and the nice thing about dentistry is there's so many wide variety of ways to achieve good patient care. So it's not that if you're doing a temporary, you're doing bad patient care. But for those of us who do a lot of same-day dentistry, we see the benefit of not putting a temporary on a tooth for 2 weeks, re-anesthetizing the patient, taking that temporary off and trying to deliver something.
That'll last long, yeah.
Yeah, and they pushed that whole workflow, and then E4D out of Richardson, Texas came out with a scanner and a mill. And then, so now CEREC had a little bit of a slight competition.
Yeah. What year was this?
That was 2009.
2009.
In fact, that's the system the school purchased.
What blows my mind is these guys started pretty much pre-CAD, like in the 90s. It was sort of pre-computers or super early days of computers, how they saw this vision that milling and CAD/CAM is the future of dentistry way early. It's amazing how they really led that revolution. That's what I think about them.
Definitely pioneers. And what's funny is if you look at the research of those old CEREC restorations.
They're still there, right?
The data shows that it was a little piece of glass in a sea of resin because they didn't fit that well.
Wow.
But they are still very successful, talking about 90+ success rate at 20 years with Vita Mark II. And it's like they used to get made fun of by clinicians of, that's not good dentistry, it's never going to work, it's never going to last, it's not going to hold up. But guess what?
Still there.
It's still there. I still have patients with 20, 30-year-old CEREC restorations.
Amazing. And then what about E4D? What was that story? I actually don't know that. I came to dentistry in 2016, so
So E4D, there was an investor out of South Africa who invested in a jewelry mill that was designed to mill gold. So he purchased this company that had a really phenomenal jewelry mill for machining out metals. Didn't know necessarily what to do with it. Then he met up with these Quadling twins who were brilliant scientists and engineers who had developed a scanner that didn't need powder. And they teamed up to form E4D Technologies, which combined that mill with this scanner, and then they hired CAD software engineers to develop some type of design software. They spun that all out within like 5 years and released this system. And quite frankly, it wasn't really ready to market early on because it had a lot of bugs and kinks. But
that's how it usually is in the early days.
They pushed it forward, and to this day, some of that technology exists in Planmeca's systems.
That's the Planmeca technology now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you mentioned powder-free. Today, you'll talk about it as if this is 20 years ago, but that's 6-7 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It wasn't too long ago that powder was a normal thing when trying to scan intraorally. And,
right.
It wasn't that bad, and I think a lot of people made a lot of fuss about it, but...
It worked, man. CEREC for a long time was like that.
It worked.
Yeah. So back to the dental school. So you started the digital dentistry program, which is still, I think at the time, that was the only dedicated digital dentistry program in the nation.
Yep. And I just, I'm lucky in that it was the right time, right place, and then we just built on it. Every year it got more robust. We would implement it into more preclinical courses, and more clinical area was dedicated to it. So we opened up the CAD/CAM clinic, and then we opened up the digital aesthetic clinic. And these weren't electives. Everybody did these. It was a standard of care almost to do a same-day EMAX crown or whatever. And to have an undergraduate dental student prep, scan, design, mill, and deliver in a relatively short 3-hour appointment for dental students was, at the time, thought to be impossible. And to this day, even many schools who are trying to implement this, they do it in multiple visits or this or that, which makes no sense. So very proud of that program. Eventually, after 15 years in academics, I moved up to be the Assistant Dean of Innovation in Digital Dentistry, where we further grew the program to include a 2-year residency in digital dentistry, which right now my colleague Christian Brennis,
amazing clinician, researcher, absolutely.
Yeah, so he's there now doing that. But it got to be the point where personally I felt in academics,
15 years is a long time.
It's a long time to be somewhere. And at the same time, there's a lot of politics. And it's not just the politics. There's also, you start to realize when you get higher up in academics, you lose sight
of the reality of the world.
Yeah, because typically you're not involved in teaching as much. You're not in the day-to-day, right? And you become more of an administrator in that you're dealing more with bureaucratic issues, less with helping the people that you came to work for, right? The students. And so once I lost sight of that, I realized, to really impact and to do it on my own time and way, I need to open up my own training center. And so that's when the Mod Institute was born. It was 2 years ago.
How did you come up with the name?
Modern optimized dentistry is a term that we had been throwing around for a while in some closed circles, and it's the concept of leveraging the latest technology, whatever that may be at the time, to create better patient care. And mod just kind of flew off the tongue, and it also, when you ask your average person, half the people don't know it. They still call it MOD, or they don't know what mod stands for, which is fine. Because most companies who have an acronym, eventually nobody knows what it stands for.
Exactly.
Which is totally fine. But at the very least, mod at least maybe sounds modern. Maybe it's short for modern for your average person, but it's supposed to stand for modern optimized dentistry. And we do believe that we're the place for people to come learn how to do more modern techniques, whether it's single visit dentures, 3D printed dentures, or printed veneers. People come to us to learn these things.
At MUSC, I remember you did a lot of research. I mean, the first research I saw and got to know you was a iOS, like a benchmark of accuracy between the different scanners. And still, you're using a lot of that research DNA of yours from the first job that you had. I see it a lot. Tell me about more before we get deeper into the Mod Institute. How much research you did there? What was the area of passion?
Yeah, so over 40 publications in peer-reviewed journals. And my passion was digital dentistry. We did a lot of studies on the accuracy of scanners and really helped push companies forward who we worked with at the time and validate these scanners as options that could go against polyvinyl siloxane and polyether using true human models. We also did a lot of material science research. I have a few patents on dental adhesives, and we had some fun there. I started a little startup that, we got some NIH funding, we got some grants, we did.
What was innovative about it? Let's talk about it.
So the adhesive that we invented was permanently antimicrobial, and was anti-collisiolytic, so it had the ability to inhibit endogenous enzymes that were degrading collagen in the hybrid layer. MMP, matrix metalloprotease, 2, 8, and 10, and other proteases that live inside your tooth. We were able to take care of that. And what that meant, just what does that mean, Wally? Well, it means bond longevity goes through the roof, recurrent decay goes down to almost nothing. Right, so, but the issue is that we ran out of funding to try to get FDA through, GLP certified labs and all that. So we just were like, it's not worth trying to get this thing through FDA. But it was a fun time.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's also, the whole adhesive market with so many companies right now. It's a tough market to be.
Yeah, it's a very competitive market.
Very competitive.
Not a lot of innovation, a lot of rebranding things in new bottles and calling it next gen.
So what do you think of that? I see that a lot in dentistry.
Yeah.
Like people coming, OEMing this, OEMing that. Big giant companies who used to be the leaders. It bothers me.
They just white label stuff. It's silly. In fact, if you look at the adhesives, there's probably only like 2 manufacturers
who are making
all the adhesives. And it's like they put the same thing in a different bottle. And these people are like, oh, this is so much better. I'm like, it's the same thing. Secret.
And what's, to me, is pretty interesting is essentially it's out of laziness. Like they don't want to spend time to bring it to market, to prove it, to continue making it better and better and better.
And it can be better.
Yeah, and I think I had a conversation with someone who told me, hey, why don't you do a device like this and like that, and what does it take to bring, I think it was a lab printer giant. And I said, listen, bringing a new product is like bringing a new kid to the world. It's not just about bringing it to the world.
Yeah.
You got to invest time and energy and marketing and investment and research and generation 2 and generation 3.
Yeah.
I think I empathize why they do it, but it's one of those principles like us at SprintRay. We started with 99% third-party resin.
Yep.
As you know, I told you some of the backstories already. Right now, we're over 95% SprintRay made. And the 5% is very strategic. I think we don't want to go that direction. But innovation happens when you really put everything you have in that essentially line of products and bring the next generation and next generation.
I respect that. I mean, you and I actually had a little argument about this a few years ago, where I was like, you guys are just white labeling other resins. And you're like, no, Wally, actually, this is manufactured right here in the USA, in our own facility. And I said, no, it's not. Prove it. And then you're like, let me show you. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. These guys are actually making their own resins right here using truly innovative materials. And I was like, wait a minute. So, yeah.
You want to go there, huh? So, well, you've been, I think, at the same time an amazing educator, innovator. At the same time, you've been very controversial. So, remember, you started with SprintRay first. We were the first printer, right? Is that safe to say?
I had a Form Labs before you.
Heartbroken.
I had an old...
Thought I was the first.
I had an old Form Labs, Form 1, the original Form Labs.
Oh, Form 1.
Yeah.
That's where you started.
That's when I started. I printed surgical guides on that thing. And then you guys came along with the Moonray. This was very early on. And I saw the power of curing a layer all at once versus a laser beam having to go back and forth.
Carving out basically one. Yeah.
And I was like, wow. I was like, this is truly a game changer because I could decrease my print time. At the time, it was quite dramatic. It was almost an exponential decrease in print time. I was like, wow, I need to be on whatever these guys are doing. And so you really supported the university early on.
We did a lot of work at COVID together.
We
Remember
did.
The masks and print swabs.
Yeah, it was such a fun time. And this was also then we built from the Moonray, we went to the Pro, and we did
a lot of dentures with Denko material.
Lots of Denko dentures. There was a point where I was doing like 250 dentures a month.
Now, I still remember a post you put, this thing is a denture machine, and you posted it on the SprintRay users.
It was great times. And then we got a metal printer at the university that was printing titanium and cobalt chrome. And the ortho department was printing retainers from the SprintRay systems. Surgery was printing. Everybody was printing. It was great.
Right, yeah. And then you joined our competition, which we competed for a while. But Wally, you're also very blunt.
Yeah.
Especially in social media.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. And you've been very blunt to us at SprintRay. And, you know, I always appreciated that because you point out our weaknesses like directly to our face. And what's better than someone tell you where you suck, then you go improve it. So that little argument really, it was a big mess up because we had our own material, but we were still using the wrong FDA listing back then. But later on, I'm going to get into it. But tell me about this in your...
Yeah, so there was an executive position that opened up at Desktop Health who previously was in Vision Tech. So Desktop Metal purchased in Vision Tech for $300 million. And they were looking for some dental people to help guide them. And the way that the CEO at the time presented it to me was I would have a chance to change dentistry because we were going to work on some resin projects that would really change dentistry. And I was like, they of course wouldn't show me anything until I signed on, but that project was one of the first non-brittle tooth materials. And that was very exciting at the time. But it was also very frustrating because it's such a big company. So you have Desktop Metal as a very big company trying to do something as a niche in the dental space. And you are working with, for example, we were working with chemists in Germany, Canada, Texas, Michigan, and trying to coordinate all that.
Projects, yeah.
Projects.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Also, it's about the focus. As you know, I always say that we're focused in dentistry.
You're the only company, so right.
At this point. And then I think sometimes along that route is where you coined the term gumball printers.
Well,
and that really created your Facebook group, which I think is one of the most legitimate communities of learning and essentially gaining a lot of knowledge in dentistry and 3D printing. So tell me about how that happened.
Yeah, you know, working as an executive at a big 3D printing company, I learned a lot. And one thing that I learned is the amount of work that goes into validating a resin. It's not just, you just cure it until it looks like it's accurate. It's way beyond that. It's everything from the biomechanical testing of that particular resin with that printer and that curing unit. But it's also the biocompatibility and the aging and everything that goes into that is a lot of work, right? And so what upset me was people printing those very same resins on a very weak LCD printer that did not have high intensity outputs, not doing any testing except it looks like it's cured. It kind of fits, must be cured. And I just have some concerns. At the time, it was frustrating because, you know, you would spend six months to a year just on testing that material to make sure it's okay for a patient. To have somebody turn around and spend 5 hours tinkering with a resin cure profile and saying it's validated. And to me, that was just upsetting because it's not upsetting from the standpoint of, we're going to lose business to these inferior printers. It's upsetting because what if this gives printing a bad name? What if you do an all-in-X prosthetic and you use the material on one of these gumball printers and the prosthetic breaks at day 2 and all the implants fail? It's probably not the fault of that printer, but it could be. But all it takes is one big issue like that to ruin printing. don't want our patients to get bad negative news about printing. I want them to be excited about it. And so for me, the big thing is, let's just use validated workflows. I don't care on what printer it is. Companies spend a lot of time and effort to validate things. Let's just stick with those workflows.
And so you started the Facebook group. Can we take a look at it?
Yeah.
How many users do you have right now?
I think 5,000. The Facebook group is open to all printers. We don't take any money from any companies. And the only rule is, please just post printers who have gone through validation.
And that's the beginning of you becoming more like agnostic and
it is
essentially
quitting.
Helping the industry rather than helping a specific company. And I always acknowledge that. Even here, I came here today, you have all brands and everything, and I'm like looking at it, just enjoying how much work you do to fine-tune your craft, to teach that to other clinicians. Irrespective of that.
I'm proud of this group. It's a very active group of some of the most phenomenal clinicians from around the world who really want to help people print on validated printers.
There we go. So you have almost 6,000 users in it.
Yep.
Well, you see, first one is what is this? How much time do you spend in the group?
Probably about 20 hours a week.
20 hours a week?
Yeah.
That's like almost like half of your normal, regular. Amazing. And what like different type of questions you get? Can you generalize some of them?
Yeah, we get a lot of people who are just like, they have a machine and they have some issues and they want to know, like usually, what, a lot of the issues that people have are support. They don't know how to support their prints on the
They
site.
reach out to you.
They reach out, hey, can you help me? I'm having a failed print. 9 out of 10 times it's that. But
you're helping, yeah.
Just helping people. And a lot of times we get questions on, what can I print? How do I design this? How do I post-process this? How do I make my prints look better? How do I make them look like real teeth, natural, things like that. So it's a fun, active group with a lot of really good people. And then we have fun too. We teach people how to
do Star Wars
stuff into their prints.
Amazing. So on the resin topic, why don't you share some of the evolution of dental 3D printing resins? I want to hear from your thoughts as a organic chemist, which I didn't know until this podcast, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So how do you see that evolution, and what do you think the future will look like?
I think we've come so far in the past 5 years with resins, specifically print resins, and what's really nice to see is the amount of money in R&D being spent put back into dentistry, right? Because if you look at the market in general, the way it's been for the last 50 years, if you look at like our direct resin technology, very slow evolution. We have BIS-GMA-based resins that maybe you mix a little TEG DMA and urethane dimethacrylate in there over the years, and then you mix up the filler particles just a little bit over the decades. Basically, the resins that we're using today are in the mouth are very similar to the resins that we would have used 20 years ago. Slight difference in filler particles, but the photoinitiators are very similar, and the base chemistry is dimethacrylate-based resin is the same. That's the kind of resins we were dealing with in printing early on. Very brittle,
ugly,
high water absorption,
right.
Low degree of conversion. So, you print it and you put it in this nail curing light, it seemed like. Underpowered.
Remember those days?
And like that thing would never get cured. And it's just, we have come so far. So now we're talking about truly novel oligomers, filler particles that are functionalized to the matrix in a way that creates a high impact material, curing units that are designed to not only increase biocompatibility but also fine-tune mechanical properties. We're at a point now with our printed materials that we're truly evolving past this concept of inferior to milled or inferior to pressed or packed, to something that we could rival other manufacturing techniques. For the first time, I would say, I think this year, the last year or a year and a half has really been the time that we've transitioned
And you've been making that one of the acceleration elements of this. Listen, 2017 is the first time that I went to any dental show. It was midwinter, Chicago, February, and all I had to talk about was printing model resin and surgical guide. Surgical guide was around back then. Yeah. Printing restoratives, it's like hallucination.
Yeah.
I think you were one of the first one, even earlier than us as manufacturers, as essentially the people who are supposed to push it, talked about it. What do you see it now?
Wow, I'm so excited of where we are now, because if you think about printing, it is the best way, I think, to manufacture prosthetics for patients. Because,
why is that?
Well, because these prosthetics are crafted by light, not by giant diamond burrs. It's a more precise and accurate way to craft prosthetics. The fits are better. This efficiency is way better. So I could print 10 veneers in 10 minutes with your crown kit. It would take me 4 hours to mill 10 veneers, more. So now I have a patient.
How many hours?
4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you go from 10 minutes to 4 hours. On like 10 veneers you have to slow down the mill so they don't get chipping, right? So you can't just go in there and just blast through a veneer on a mill. When you could print these things paper thin, and to be honest with you, we switched to printed veneers for, I would say, 90% of our veneers.
Today, and you have like 5 different mills here, but you still print because it's better.
Because it's better, and it's one of the applications I could truly say it's better. Because I could be more conservative, I could print thinner. I don't have to reduce as much tooth structure.
So you do no prep?
No prep, yeah.
Amazing. So what is your take on, I don't want to say future of milling, but I think technology, every technology has its own place, so you would use it. But what do you think in the 5 years, what do you mill, what do you print?
5 years? I see milling going away in 5 years.
Even for zirconia and all those stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just talk about this. I mean, this is something that I think is, I love polymer chemistry, and I like the concept of where we're heading with glass-filled resins. If you look at zirconia, as like everybody wants zirconia, right?
Why is that?
Well, because it's easy to use, it's super strong and cheap, right? You get a puck of zirconia for $100. And the thing is, you need a very nice 5-axis mill to machine that. But zirconia, I think, is not the answer for dentistry. I don't think it ever has been. I think it's a great material right now. It's filling a void. What we truly need is a super polymer. I mean, if you look at like the industry in general, if you look at engineering, we've gone away from a lot of alloys and ceramics, and we've gone to these super polymers that are lighter. If you put 2 zirconia arches on a patient, those things
like
just,
2 China plates.
Those things just clank together. Like, I mean, they're
heavy.
They're heavy. They clank. They're indestructible.
They're brittle too.
Well, it's
it's just strong.
For me, it's the fact that they're not dynamic, right? If you look at natural teeth, they wear a little bit. They give. They flex. Zirconia is like the immovable rock in the mouth. So for me, I've always been more of a ceramic person before printing. I've always been more of a glass person. But printing, I think you'll see, and you'll know better than me because you got secrets, but I think in the next 5 years, you'll see a material come out that we could print with a flexural strength around 500 megapascals. We'll probably hit 300 in the next 2 years, and then in 5 years, we'll probably hit 500.
So we talk a lot about flexural strength doesn't matter, but you're still referring to that.
Well, it's because what your average person, it's like...
What is tooth? What is enamels?
So fracture toughness is the number that we should really be focusing on.
Why is that?
There is a randomized controlled clinical trial published in 2016 that tried to correlate all of these numbers to clinical longevity of restorations. So it looked at flexural modulus, fracture toughness, flexural strength, work fracture, all these things that we bang in a lab. And it determined that all those things are actually meaningless except fracture toughness. Fracture toughness had a high correlation with clinical survival. And so fracture toughness is actually a similar test to flexural strength, but a crack is induced into the material before it's loaded. And you get a totally different value. It's not on the scale of flexural strength. And so you actually see some very high flexural strength materials that have failed miserably on the market.
In the mouth.
I'm not going to mention specific brands, but there's 2 in particular in most recent years that had incredible flexural strength that have failed prematurely. And these ceramic materials had low fracture toughness. So if we actually looked at the fracture toughness, we could predict, oh yeah, it's normal that these would fail like this because the fracture toughness is below 2. Fracture tougghnesses above 2 are your materials like Emax. Emax has a fracture toughness.
2.1, right?
2.1.
2.1, 2.2.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Zirconia depends on if it's 5Y, 4Y, or 3Y, but you're anywhere from 2.5 to 4 for fracture toughness. There's a printed material out there that has a fracture toughness of 2.9. You guys have it.
Yeah, we have Onyx Tough is one of the best ones out there.
That's the one.
With a pretty good value.
So you have a fracture toughness that's higher than natural tooth structure because dentin has a fracture toughness of 2.4 and enamel has a fracture toughness of 2. So now you give me a material that has a fracture toughness that I could print that's as good or better than natural tooth structure, that wears at the same rate as enamel. That is the material I want to use. So that's why I'm transitioning almost everything to printed.
To printed.
Yeah.
So Wally, I think it was 2 years ago that you started to post about printed crowns, and I'm sure you got a lot of hate, and a lot of people were doubters, this doesn't work.
Yep.
What's really inspiring to me is those moments of courage to go ahead and post it regardless. You know you got to get a lot of hate, a lot of naysayers. I want to hear that. What was that process of making up your mind to actually go ahead and doing that?
You know, it's a secret. I've been printing restorations for 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. Permanently putting them in place, starting with old NextDent resins.
MFH.
Yep. And you know what's funny? It took me about 18 months of watching these things. They were phenomenally successful even with those inferior resins because I bonded them in place. And, you know, then we had Old Bago, which has been out forever. That was successful for me. And then we had other...
The printed Bago.
Printed Bago.
That's a good material.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
Yeah. And those were successful for me on my patients. And I was like, you know what? Nobody's showing this. Nobody's doing this. What I did was, I think I'm one of the first to show that it works and that if you do it correctly, it's a very nice option for your patients. And what's cool is the resins just keep getting better and better and better. And so do, you know, I feel like we're at the point now where it's a no-brainer. Why would you not want to print a restoration for your patient? And there's people that are still against it. I still get hate mail, but it's okay.
It's part of innovating. You got to disrupt, and when you disrupt, again, a lot of people are going to say, no, it doesn't work until they say it does. I told you so.
But, you know, I've been around long enough to hear those same things for the scanning. I remember.
What was yeah, tell me about those.
Yeah, I mean, I remember scanning with the CEREC and the
People
E4D.
made fun of them, yeah.
2008. Oh, you're doing malpractice.
Oh my God.
You're never going to be as accurate as a physical impression. Your crowns are never going to fit in those mills. You're doing bad dentistry. You're doing bad work. They look like glorified temporaries. I can't believe you would use that thing, right? Fast forward, 90% of all restorations in the United States are milled.
Are milled today?
Yeah, it might be a lab mill, but they're milled. I saw it then. You know, it's really cool where we are in dentistry, right? All those same naysayers are adopting. That's great.
I think that's what usually happens, yeah.
But we're here with printing, and I've heard the same thing. It's the tired old statement. Those dentures, those are just temporaries. They're never going to be as good as real dentures. those crowns you're printing, those are not going to work. And you know what? It's funny because I'm kind of like, you keep thinking that because it gives me a huge advantage clinically with my patients because I could provide for them a high quality care before it gets out there as standard, right? For me, I could print 10 veneers in 10 minutes.
No one else can do that.
Nobody else is doing that. It's not because they can't, it's because they still think it's not an option. You keep thinking that, and I'm like, building my whole practice on this, and I have been for the past 3 years.
So I want to talk about MOD. I mean, I know you had the thought of MOD, Modern Optimized Dentistry. So you came with, who was the co-founder, Mike?
Mike. And
how did you meet Mike?
Mike, I met in dental school. He was a Ph.D. DMD.
Ph.D. DMD. Those are the best.
There's only like 1 or 2 of those in the world.
Yeah, those are the best.
So he was in dental school for like 25 years.
Whoa.
No, it was a ridiculously long time. Like, I think he like started right around the same time I did. And then like I was like full professor with tenure and he was still in dental school doing research or something. He was incredible. He was doing his Ph.D. Very beautiful mind that guy has. So super smart. And he has kind of golden hands. And so he left school after he got his Ph.D. and DMD and went and opened a practice in North Carolina, crushed it over there, sold it, and then he called me up and he's like, I'm moving to Charleston. He's like, do you know of anybody looking for, I just want to do a little tinkering here or there. I'm like, nah, man. I was like, if you come to Charleston, we're going to open something together. So he's like, okay, what do you have in mind? I'm like, training center.
Modern
optimized dentistry. That's something I've been thinking about for like 10 years. And I already had this vision exactly what this place would be long time ago. So Mike helped me put my plan into action because he's a very organized person. And then Sean is another equal partner who is a brilliant marketing guy.
Marketing, yeah. Get the branding. I second that.
Can't do it without marketing.
So when did you open MOD's doors to the public?
Really, 18 months ago was our first course, and it wasn't even here because we weren't done with the facility yet. So we were jumping around hotel to hotel.
Oh, you were doing in a third-party facility.
Yeah, because we were supposed to be open, but COVID and all this stuff delayed us.
Who picked the logo?
Sean,
shout out. That's amazing. Good branding.
Yeah,
he gets it.
He does get it.
And then I remember, I think that's when you just joined Envision Tech and you were starting to post some of these amazing models. There was the rubber dam thingy, and I still don't know what it's called.
Yeah, rubber dam clamps and stuff.
The clamps. And then I'm like, wow, that is cool. And I remember I called you on, Shay called you. I don't know if you remember that. And you said, Amir, I got Envision Tech.
Yes, I did get Envision Tech.
And then
I did. It's funny because we weren't really open yet here at MOD. I quit the university and this position landed in my lap. And I'm like, you know what, let me try it out for a little bit.
MOD, you mean, yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, it just doesn't work, so. Yeah. Amazing. So what was the first course you offered in MOD?
Our very first course was called 3D Printing A to Z.
That's it, just teaching people.
Just, they came and they learned what you could print.
Let me go to your website. I want to show it to the
It's one of my favorite courses.
Do you still teach that, or you?
I still have it.
So we're at the MOD Institute. So tell me about MOD. You see patients pro bono, basically non-profit.
Non-profit.
And at the same time, you train and educate. We see August, we're going to talk about that. So tell me about the structure. What do the audience, the students learn?
Real-world applications of 3D printing. So, we practice what we preach. So we've done about 1,000 3D printed restorations in the last year. And
thousands?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So we really try to put systems in place to help teams be successful when they want to print, whether it's a bite guard, a denture, or veneers. And we want to try to teach people that it's possible.
So what is level 1, level 2, level 3? What is the difference?
Level 1 is really designed for people who have a printer and want to take their printer to the next level, where they could branch out from models and start doing more exciting things like...
In the mouth stuff, basically.
Yeah, anything that goes in the mouth, really. And then level 2 is all focused on smile design.
Just smile design and...
Veneers. And we usually have a patient come in and we do their whole smile.
That's amazing.
Live in class.
Level 3 is full arch and full mouth.
Dentures. 3D printed dentures are one of my favorite things to do. And the fits that we get, I mean, it's incredible. The efficiency. Here at MOD, we do same-day dentures. So,
same-day dentures doesn't exist. You guys do it.
It's not only possible, it's actually pretty easy. So we get a patient in, we'll scan them. We have a special technique that we've developed with a tray that's freely downloadable. We have free tutorials on how to do this, where you can take your records, scan it all, design your denture, and then 3D print it right there for the patient. It's really cool. And
you just opened up Mod West, and I see August de Oliveira, one of amazing
lucky to have that
friends
guy.
And yeah, absolutely. You want to talk about that? Then I tell you a story about August.
Well, August is like the man when it comes to 3D printing, right? And the opportunity came up where we could partner with him, and we jumped all over that because he's one of the people who inspired me to 3D print. So he's just this person who has a certain ability to really boil down complicated concepts and make them relatable and easy to understand in a way that I've never seen anybody do it like him. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. For what I met August, I think August was the first ever KOL that I had.
Wow.
So he came, he's probably one of the only clinicians now who have met my first office ever, 2017.
Oh, wow.
So one of our early employees knew August from the implant days, and August stopped by, and since then, we just kept a relationship with him. And he's the one who really pushed 3D printing again. Right now, things are easy and figured out, but he's one of those clinicians who early days really pushed things to the boundaries. And
he did.
The other thing is, it's just in his free time, he programs Unity and he makes VR
and all sorts of stuff.
Amazing what he does. No, so very excited about the mod course in West Coast, and I think it's much needed. And your course was sold out in like 24 hours.
Yeah. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. We're very lucky that we have so much incredible instructors to work with at MOD. And August, to be honest with you, he's such a good educator that if you haven't seen him or heard him speak, you have to check him out. It's amazing. He's the reason why we're here where we are with 3D printing, I would think.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for innovators like him,
100%.
we would not be here right now.
With our Moonray printers, he did so much work and developed new workflows. And
he did.
The early days is amazing. So what is next for MOD?
Well, we're really going to start taking some education online, because we realized that we could only impact, my time and August's time, so many clinicians a year, but the demand is much greater than that.
Agreed.
So we want to try to take education online, but in a way that's not really been done before in the dental space. So we're not going to just blitz with tons and tons of courses. We're really going to spend an extremely productive amount of time here in the next 6 months to really focus on targeted online courses that are done at a high level that will feel like you're with us when you're taking these courses. They're very clinically orientated, really high quality online courses is my focus for the next 6 months to a year to see how that works.
So take it online, which makes sense given the demand you have globally.
Right. A lot of colleagues can't come from around the world, and we want to reach out to them because 3D printed restorations are something that we feel everybody should be doing in dentistry.
Wally, you're also very good at finishing parts and characterization. I want to talk about that. Even I look at these models, some of them are just beautiful. So first, I want to learn, where did you learn that? How did that journey start? It's like being a craftsman.
I've always been really big into art. But my mentor, Bob Holmes, was a prosthodontist. And in dental school, he really inspired in me that I needed to improve my artistic skills.
In dental school?
In dental school, he inspired this. Dentistry, you could learn all the book stuff, but if you can't make it look nice,
good, doesn't matter.
And for the first time, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to really up my game here. And when I became a faculty member, you know what he made me do? He made me cast all my own PFMs and stack my own porcelain.
Oh, you did?
So I did. But we had a thing where every month we would have a competition where I would have to stack a powder liquid tooth with feldspathic porcelain, whole tooth, root and tooth, and mix it in with real teeth. And if he could tell which one was my fake one,
wow.
I didn't, so it took me 6 years.
To master that?
6 years.
Wow.
Before I was able to fool him. And you know how humbling that is for me? He was amazing. He could look at my glass work.
And tell you it's fake.
And tell me it was fake.
Where is he now?
He's deceased.
Oh, sorry.
But you know what, though? He lives on in my mind every day. He's there.
Amazing.
He's a mentor that never leaves you.
So that's how you learn it.
That's how you learn it.
And then you spend a lot of time finishing, or more like a lot of passion into it.
Yeah, but you know what you learn, because I'm not innately talented like that. When you're forced to do stuff at that level, you learn tips and tricks to make it easy.
It stays in your mind, yeah.
It's almost like cookbooks. Like, paint this here this way every time, the same way, to get this result. Whereas if you're super artistic, you could just kind of like look at it and randomly start putting colors on, and the next thing you know, it's just, oh my goodness.
And that's what you teach at Mod.
Yeah, I try to teach people that you don't need to be super
an
artistic.
Artist. Let's look at one of the parts that you finished, and it was beautiful how you did it. There we go.
Oh yeah.
So what did you do here?
So this is your new Onyx Tough resin, and with the pink, and I'm painting a little bit of red material onto the deeper areas of the denture to make it appear like there's more depth to the festooning, right? Because if you look at a natural tooth and a natural gingiva, as the areas get deeper and more vascular, they get a little bit more red. And so we're just painting on a little bit of red resin. And one thing that I really like about printed dentures is they're resin-based.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that the resin character kits bond tenaciously, right? Because if you were using, say, polymethyl methacrylate based
PMMA,
then you try to paint on a resin stain, it doesn't stick well. But because we're using dimethacrylate based chemistry in kind of both those systems, you get a really good bond that's going to last. And so when we're painting on these colors, I feel confident these things are going to hold up.
Amazing. Now what you're adding here is,
let's see here, curing that pink layer on there. You know, these things look complicated or look overwhelming when you see them like
for the first time.
Yeah, but it's so cookbook.
I saw you doing it. It was 10-15 minutes tops for a denture.
Yeah, and it's really your patience. You really think that you customize. This is some light pink flowable, and what we're doing with the light pink is we're mimicking that attached tissue, that keratinized tissue that is around the teeth. And it's really easy to put on, and you just take a brush and spread it thin like that, and all of a sudden it looks like
I have it here. You gave it to me.
Yeah, there it is.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. No, it's beautiful. One of the most beautiful pieces I've seen. Amazing. So light pink, and then you cure it more.
That's it. You just spread the light pink, and then I put a little light pink up at the top like that,
bottom
and that's it.
That was it.
You're just going to spread that thin. There it is.
How much time do you spend in designing to make sure that it has the right contours to actually look good?
Yeah, I do spend, the average denture design for me is about 30 minutes.
30 minutes per arch or per case.
Dentures are one of the more complicated things to design.
This is pink onyx or high impact. I think that's the official name is high impact denture base.
Impact. Okay.
Yeah. You know the story of onyx?
No. Onyx tough.
I'll tell you about tough, but the regular onyx was, we heard from one of our distributors that one of the other competitors, you know who I'm talking about, has some good resin that works good for full arch, and SprintRay doesn't. So they are selling the competitors because we don't have a solution. And one of the things that really keep me up at night is if I don't have something that my competition, one more time. The thing that keep me up at night is if I don't have a product that my customers will leave me. And this is like really one of the things as an engineer. I think one reason we've been successful is I'm living with that paranoid. So we had a chemistry that had some 50%, 40% back then ceramics in there. We didn't know what to do with it. So we started to send samples to some of the select clinicians who are our friends on lab takes, and they said, we like it, it lasts. And we launched it in 2021. And a couple of months after, I remember that you were posting, this thing is brittle, this thing breaks.
I did, yes.
So again, to me, challenge accepted. Let's make it more tough. Let's make it more durable. So, and then the tough version was born where I was really out of trying to hit the high impact requirements that FDA requires, which is 900 joule per square centimeter of area. And the result was honest tough that you're using, and now we're bringing the high impact version of the denture base for it, which...
It's my favorite resin out there.
Why is that?
Onyx tough, and I use it in ways that push the limits of the material. So I do a lot of no prep veneers with it, monolithic dentures, all Onyx prosthetics with it, and nothing has quite held up the way that Onyx tough has. And I don't know why, maybe you could tell me, but I do know that based off of the fracture toughness values, it's the highest out of any printed material that I've seen. So that could be one reason why I think it holds up so well. But if you look at materials before this, they were either brittle or flexible but very weak, right? There was never a material that combined both, right? So Flexera tried, but the issue with that material was it didn't have enough glass in it. You guys packed glass particles in a resin, but yet made it so where it still had that impact toughness. I don't know how you did it, but it seems to be working.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's one of probably the materials that I mentioned. My chemist, Onyx Tough, is his baby every single day. At this point, he's working on translucency, as we talked about, to make it better.
Nice.
So, Wally, I think probably last topic, we're over 1 hour here. I want to see, what do you stake internationally? What are you going to do with mod?
Yeah, we have a kind of the first international 3D printing symposium in Majorca in October.
I'm joining that.
Yes, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. It's the beginning of October. Majorca is beautiful that time of year. But we do want to open a permanent mod Europe, and I don't know where it's going to be, but I would expect in around 2025 you will see us have a presence over there.
And the European dentists are more progressive when it comes to
way more
resin, I guess.
You tell them that you want to do a 3D printed resin crown inlay or onlay, no brainer.
Easy.
You tell somebody in the States, I don't know. And so actually it's refreshing. I've been over there maybe a dozen or so times at CE events, and most of the podium speakers are doing very beautiful resin, indirect resin work that lasts. And indirect resin is not abnormal there, whereas here it's like kind of in the States it's kind of a little bit unheard of, where everybody wants ceramic.
Yeah.
And so I think the perfect combination is combining a high level of ceramic with that resin to kind of meet the demands of people who want ceramic, but yet people who want resin. So
can do it. So final words, any word of advice to younger dentists coming out of dental school or the ones who are skeptical about adopting 3D printing?
You know, there's two things that I think are really important when you want to try to adopt a new technology. Don't stress yourself out with trying to do everything all at once. So find something that you're passionate about and then use the technology for that. So that might be veneers, it might be crowns, it might be dentures, it could be bite guards, but find that thing, and please don't say models. Models are cool, but let's move beyond that.
So 2005.
Yeah. Find that thing that you're passionate about and learn how to print it to the highest level and learn how to do it correctly and implement that into your practice. And what you're going to see is that it's super successful. Then you're going to want to take a deep dive and to do everything else. Once you find that passion thing and then you find that it's successful being printed. For me, that was veneers. I've been doing 3D printed veneers now for 3 years.
Amazing. You're probably one of the first ever clinicians I've seen doing that. I think mod courses are amazing, and really, if they want to go take your courses, they got to come to the website and sign up, right?
Check us out. Yeah, absolutely. We're constantly adding new and exciting courses.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Exciting for the West Coast chapter, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Thank you,
fun.
Wally.
Thank you.
Amazing.